Good morning. Hey, welcome to Church 180. My name is Tony, and hesitate to share this with you, but let's go for it, okay? So last Sunday afternoon, I took my kids over to my dad's pool because ours has been resurfaced for like 4 months now, and they heated over there anyway. So took my kids over to my dad's pool, and the scene over there is a little different than my community, and it is a lot, because I guess there's only like it's a kind of apartment rentals, and there's like up to like 2 bedrooms or whatever, so it's a lot of late 20s, early 30 families, right? And so they've all got their like little kids, and they're like in water wings and like, you know, gonna sheltering them and whatever. And then I show up on the scene. Kelsey's not with me, but I show up with all 4. She comes later, but I show up with all 4, and it's like, oh, my kids are cannonballing. Like people are trying to like lay out with their, you know, and they're getting splashed because my kids are nuts. And the thing, I don't share any of that to share that with you. The thing I noticed was there was a playlist dominating the scene that was going on down there, and it was a little peculiar to me. Like, what's going on? Okay, and at one point, my 9-year-old comes over to me and she goes, "Hey, Dad, this is like the playlist for our drive to school." I was like, "You're right. You know why?" And this is why I hesitate to share this with you. I don't want you to think less of me. It was country. It was country music, and it was being blared by these 20-somethings, you know, whatever. And my playlist on the way to school is very unique. Like, if you hit Tony Collins' station, you'd be like, what is going on? I'm getting whiplash from what I listen to what my girls listen to, the whole thing. But anyway, it's like my playlist, you know, on the way to school. And it's happening, and I'm thinking about that moment, and then I read this article that I'm going to go into in a second, but then I'm thinking about, well, actually, no, I'll just go. I read this article this week, and it was, I don't remember the name of the article, I don't even remember who wrote it, but it was like basically like the Yellowstone phenomenon, right? Am I Yellowstone people in here? 1923, 1883, or whatever? Nobody? One? Jim, thank you, Jim. Me and you, we can talk later, okay? Anyway, this article was just talking about how like our nation is getting Yellowstone fever in so many ways, and that like 20-somethings are, you know, dressing up like cowboys, and, you know, and 30-something dressing up like cowboys, and you know, whatever. And so, you know, I say all this, I'm literally in Panera Bread, and there was a couple that walks in like decked out, belt buckle, everything, walk into Panera Bread, and I'm like, that's the direction I'm going to open this message. That is the direction I am going. Because even the other day, like Kelsey and I were watching, you know, we're watching like, I don't know, we were finishing up 1923 or something, and I had this realization, and I was kind of talking to her, I was like, man, I am from a small town with people who would quote unquote consider themselves cowboys. But the idea, you know, that they portray in the show is that you get on a horse and you go, what do you do as a cowboy, right? You get on a horse and you go herd the cows. And you get them to go where they need to go. That's the idea. And I'm like, nowadays, at least where I'm from, nowadays we don't get on horses. You get on the 4-wheeler, right? You get on the gator and you round them up. Or you get the dogs out, right? And you go round them up. Anyway, I digress. I mention this because what I'm trying to say, and what I think is what you're gonna see culminate from this passage as we close out 1 Peter today, is we're gonna see some things culminate. We're gonna see this shepherd language, which is like cowboy language. We're gonna see this humility language that is cloaked in, get this, our image. Because the thing that this article was going back to, the thing about it all, and y'all, this morning you gotta understand, like, my toes are getting stepped on the hardest, okay? when I preach, like my toes are getting set, not about all the stuff I've talked about so far, but when we get into this passage, you'll see what I'm talking about. But it goes back to this idea of our image and what we portray around us. So I'm gonna pray, and then we're gonna jump into these verses, we're gonna jump into this passage, and we're gonna try to do it some justice. Jesus, I pray, Lord, that your Spirit has your way with us this morning. Lord, I pray that God, out of this text, that it just smacks our lives and helps us to get more in line with what you're doing and what you desire than what we're doing and what we desire, Lord. It's in your name we pray, Jesus. Amen. See, now, we're finishing up today. We've spent 11 weeks in the letter of 1 Peter in the Bible, and we're not going to do verse 10 through 13 or 14. You can do that on your own. We're going to close out today by reading and studying together chapter 5, verses 1 through 9 to close this off today. And it's helpful to remember that Peter is the Apostle Peter, and he is writing to a group of churches in Asia Minor or modern day Turkey, okay? And he's writing to them. This is what he says. We're going to read the first four verses together before we unpack it. He says this, he says, "To the elders among you, I appeal as a fellow elder and a witness of Christ's sufferings, who also will share in the glory to be revealed. Be shepherds of God's flock that is under your care, watching over them, not because you must, but because you are willing, as God wants you to be, not pursuing dishonest gain, but eager to serve, not lording it over those entrusted to you, but being examples to the flock. And when the chief shepherd appears, you will receive the crown of glory that will never fade away." If you grab the note sheet, if you're following along, let me hit you with the first thing here this morning. When godly leadership is centered on serving and guiding others, not the leaders. Godly leadership is centered on serving and guiding others, not the leaders. And see, whenever it comes back to image, whenever it comes back to these, we're going to talk about pride today for a while. When it comes back to look at me, look at who I am, look at the image I'm trying to portray, look at this stuff, it takes a turn, because if you think about it for a second, this passage uses shepherd language, right? It uses cowboy language, right? The idea of a cowboy originally was you get on a horse and you lead the cattle to where they need to go, which has life and water and new grass that needs to be eaten, right? Same thing for shepherds. The idea of a shepherd wasn't like, look at me, I got this little headset on and a cane and I'm walking around and this is the image that I want to portray to the world around me. It was the idea of like, the sheep need water. I need to take the sheep where they need to go. So I'm guiding, and it's not about me. It's about leading the sheep where they need to go, leading the cows where they need to go, right? And see, whenever you look at this passage, it's screaming out at us, man, like godly leadership is about guiding and serving others, not about the leaders. See, and I take this back to, obviously, when you look at this, I view everything through a bunch of different lenses, and whatever side of the aisle you're on politically, this is one of the things that rubs us the wrongest with the state of our nation in a lot of ways, right? Because it feels like those in power, those who are in authority, those who are supposed to be leading and guiding and directing, oftentimes feels like it doesn't really matter which way you look. It just seems like leadership is about serving themselves, not about serving the people in the direction that the people need to go in so many ways. And this is what rubs us wrong, right? This is what rubs us wrong with politics. This is what rubs us wrong with businesses. This is what rubs us wrong with companies. This is what rubs us wrong with churches. This is what rubs us wrong with so much of worldly leadership that we look at, right? It seems like, are these people for me? Are they for the greater good? Or are they just for themselves and their image, right? And that just rubs us wrong when we look at this. It's the same with church a lot. I was just talking about this, and I was on a walk this week, and you guys have probably heard me talk about this guy before. Mark Sayers is a pastor from Australia that I listen to quite often, his podcasts, and I was listening to the podcast the other day, and they were promoting a new book that he just wrote that I cannot wait to get my hands on and read. But it's this new book called From Platforms to Pillars, okay? And one of the things he was talking about in the podcast was that platform is this word that was not used very much in the English language up to a few years ago, right? It's a word that's been around for a long time that symbolizes a stage, or the platform that you get on before you get on the train, or the platform that you get on before you get on the airplane, which has a different name. I can't remember what it is. But it's like this idea of like this word that wasn't used very often but had a specific term. But now we live in a platform society. Y'all know what I'm talking about? And it's used in a myriad of ways, right? So you have your platform society in the sense of like, think Uber, right? And one of the things that you think about with the world we live in today is that so much of the money that is made is not in doing anything. It's just connecting people to services or goods, right? I think Amazon, it's a platform. I mean, I know they have the Amazon Basics now that we all buy with our batteries and, I don't know, hand towels, whatever. But, but it's this idea of, okay, these people make things and goods, these people need things, and the platform is in the middle that connects people to those things. And that's how much of the world economy works now. But then it's also this word, platform, is also this word that is used in the sense of what? A following. Like, how'd you get your platform? Oh, you got X amount of followers. We need to give you a product for your platform to promote to these people. And remember, like, we were talking about godly leadership is about serving and guiding other people, not just about the leaders. But I mean, now we live in a day where it's like, well, use your platform. And, we got these people on their platform like, hey, use this product. And it's like, is it good? No, it's not good. But use it, because I'm talking about it on my platform, right? And stuff. And when we go back to the essence of this passage, it's like, man, whether it be a literal stage or whether it be an online platform or what kind of following or anything about leadership, godly leadership is centered on serving and guiding others. It's not focused on the leader or the image of the leader, right? That's what this passage is trying to say. And so Peter makes this abundantly clear. He says, not under compulsion, not for dishonest gain, not for power or domineering authority, but out of willingness, eagerness, devotion, and this final word that we're going to spend some time on today, humility. Humility. So he goes on to say this. Okay, check this out. It says right after, when the chief shepherd appears, you'll receive the crown of glory that will never fade away. Verse 5, in the same way, you who are younger, submit yourselves to your elders. All of you, clothe yourselves with humility towards one another, because God opposes the proud but shows favor to the humble. Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. So point number 2, if you're following along in your note sheet, is that humility is a godly superpower for both leading and for following. Humility is a godly superpower for both leading and for following. See, you may have heard this before, but I'm guessing in a room this size, there's so many of us that haven't heard this before in the Bible. But there are 2 specific instances in all of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the accounts of the life of Jesus. There are 2 specific instances in which Jesus, his jaw drops, and he's amazed, he's wowed, he's impressed. 2 cases. Do y'all know what they are? You want to know? Let's set it up. You want to know? Okay. Number 1. He goes back to his hometown, and people think he's a joke, right? They don't believe in anything that God is up to through him. And it says that he is amazed at their disbelief in what God is up to through him. Number 1. Number 2 is the one we're going to talk about. Luke chapter 7, okay? Luke chapter 7, we have a Roman centurion. Okay, Roman soldier. Let me try to set this up for you real quick, because I know we can just kind of skip by like, oh, that's what happened, a Roman centurion, whatever. Okay, Roman centurion. Okay, the nation of Israel is in Roman territory at the time, right? And so Rome is the empire, and Rome technically oppresses, lords over the nation of Israel, and so many people thought that whenever Jesus came, he was going to deliver them from Roman oppression and deliver them from the power of Rome and all the authorities and all the stuff that was happening, and that was not God's plan at all. But anyway, so you have like basically the nation of Rome saying, that's fine, Israel. You can do your little God thing. You can do your little Jewish thing, and you can go to your little synagogues and do your little faith thing and stuff like that, as long as you don't come up against Roman power and Roman authority. And we will put these things called soldiers or centurions in to make sure that we have power of our empire, right? And so there's a Roman centurion who is in Israel, okay? And somehow he sees this little following of Jesus start to erupt and pop up. And something's going on the inside of him because he has a servant, okay? Somebody who's a servant who's gone ill. Now, this is Luke chapter 7. A servant has become ill, which typically for Roman soldiers, if they had a servant, a slave who becomes ill, who is unable to work, it's like, well, just cast him off or kill him or whatever, because if they can't work, I don't need them. But he has a servant, and his heart is gripped by this servant, so much so that he goes up to Jesus and he says, Jesus, I don't even deserve your time. I don't even deserve your time. Something is going on with you, and I believe that if you just say the word, that you can heal this servant of mine, this slave of mine, this person of mine that I care about, because I too, this is what he says, I too am a man under authority. And I can say to people that are under my authority, you go this way and you go that way and you do this and you do that, and they do it. And what Jesus says, what Luke says about Jesus from this passage next is that Jesus was amazed. His jaw dropped. He was blown away. And he said this, he said, you have more faith than the rest of this nation. That's what he says to this guy. Like, he was so amazed at his faith. And the thing is that he understood chain of command. He understood the fact that he'd been given authority, and that he had authority, that he had someone over him and someone under him. And he says, Jesus, you seem to have someone speaking into you, and you can talk to sicknesses. You could talk to demons. You could talk to illness. You could talk to anything, and it just does what you command it to do. And Jesus is like, whew, this is a guy that gets it. This is a guy that has faith. This is a guy that understands. And see, all of this is about chain of command, and all of this is about humility. And what I'm trying to say is that godly superpower is humility, for not just leading, but for following. Think about it. Whenever it comes to leading, like, you don't like leaders that aren't humble. If they're arrogant, forget them, right? If they clearly about their image or self-seeking or about themselves, then that's what rubs us wrong. But same thing with following, right? You can't truly follow without humility. You can't. I mean, they call it quiet quitting, call it like divisive, call it dissension, call it antagonistic. It's getting by. In some ways, humility is a godly superpower for both leading and for following. And I would say this about humility. Humility isn't thinking less of yourself, but it's thinking about yourself less. See, the antonym for humility is pride, right? And I would define pride, if you're following along, it's not going to be on the screen, but I would define pride as first and foremost, it is protecting our image. What it is. Think about it. Like, you could take my definition and tell me that I'm wrong about it in some ways, but I'm going to tell you I'm 80% right. And when it comes back to our pride, so much of our pride is like, nah, this is the way that I want to be seen to the world around me. This is who I want to portray. This is my image. And that's pride. And what it says here is this. It says God resists pride in the original language, or resists it. You know what that means? It says opposes. It's like this idea of like, okay, the battle lines are drawn, and God's right here, and our protection of our image, our pride, what we carry that is in us that isn't humble is like us squaring up to battle with God. When we don't lay that aside. It's like, okay, this is me, this is my image. I'm gonna protect it. And it's like squaring up for battle with God. See, I want to throw this in real quick because I think it's helpful, and I think it's just worth throwing in. This past Monday night, we had our third or fourth shepherd meeting. We don't call our elders at Church 180 top form of leadership. We don't call them elders. We call them shepherds. Part of it goes back to this passage and the idea of shepherding the flock. Part of it goes back to, give that cowboy imagery, right? Of like leading the cattle where the grass is. And I would say this, like you've got a team of shepherds here at Church 180, man, who are humble. And they love you. They care about you. They want to lead you to fertile grass, metaphorically, and water. They want to lead you and guide you, not self-seeking, not seeking their own image. So much so that we went over bylaws for 3 hours, just about how to guide you guys this past Monday night. And man, I just want to throw that in and just say you got a team that's incredible, that's trying to lead us and lead our church to where life is, and life in Jesus. Peter says this, he says, humble yourselves therefore under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. And then verse 7, if you've been asleep and you're ready to come back to the service right now, he says this, it says, cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. Anybody anxious in here? Anybody got some anxiety issues, right? It says, cast all of your anxiety on him because he cares for you. Let me start with this real quick. This is Peter writing to Asia Minor. So he's writing to a group of churches in modern day Turkey who would have been Greek-speaking, part of the Roman Empire, but part of the Greek region, who would have been handed down religions based on like Greek mythology and different things that were happening at the day. And there was nothing about any of their religions, any of their gods, any of what they ever knew about a God who cared for them. It was all about, how do I earn the favor of this God? How do I get this God to pay attention to me, to see me, to care about me? And it's like, if I do X, Y, Z, God will care. If I do whatever. And that was the entire paradigm that they knew. And so for Peter to open up and say to these churches, like, cast all of your anxiety on this God because he cares for you, is like, wait, what? He cares for me? We got like somebody who's in charge of everything, who actually cares about me? And we can cast our anxiety on him, we can cast our worries on him because he cares for us. I would say this, following Jesus is living in a relationship with a God who cares for you. It's living in a relationship with a God who cares for you. And then if we're going to connect all of this together, here's what I would say, and you can write this down in some way. It's not going to be on the screen or anything, but true humility, I'm going to go back to humble and pride and all this stuff. True humility is found in our ability to take things to God. Pride attempts to handle things on our own. Pride says, I got this. Pride says, I can handle this. Pride says, I'm going to pull up my bootstraps and I'm going to figure my way out of this. Pride is all of those things. Humility is, God, this sucks and I can't do this without you. It's that simple. It's not simple, but it's that simple. And then I would say this, okay? This is a couple commentators talked about this, and I think it's really helpful. It's a little hopeless, but it's also helpful in some ways. because when I think about this, it's not hopeless. That's bad. Sorry. When I think about this, there's so much, when it comes to pride, there's so much there that causes anxiety, isn't there? When it comes to our pride, there's so much there. Like, think about it. Like, we live in a world where we pick this thing up and we log in, or we're in to our accounts, and we see everything that everybody else is doing. And we compare our lives to it, we get jealous about it, and we covet it, right? You know the word covet, like thou shalt not covet, that's one of the 10 Commandments. And it's this idea of, I am jealous of the house that they have, the car that they drive, the vacations they take, the food they eat, the experiences they have, the life that they live. And it's a shot to my pride to look at this and hear about it and to have it flaunted in my face. And we then carry comparison, jealousy, covetousness. We carry ambition, the idea of favor and popularity and people liking us. And I honestly think that whenever we come to Jesus with those things, he's going to say, it's your pride. It's your pride, that thing. And you need to lay that aside. You cast your anxiety on me because I care for you, but that stuff's your pride. And you're squaring up on the battlefield with me when you come here with your comparison, your jealousy, your envy, your ambition, your image, and your popularity, and you're like me, people like me, come on, people like me. Whenever you bring that, you're squaring up the battle with me. Lay it aside. Put your pride down and pick up humility. I do care for you, but I care so much about you that I need you to lay that aside and be humble. But then it's also this idea of, he says, cast your anxiety. There are things in this life that are worrisome, right? When you think about our failing bodies as human beings, right? These are things. When you think about the fact that sometimes life sucks and we can't figure out our finances, right? Sometimes life sucks and our marriage is in hard times, or relationships are hard times, or our kids go nuts and they're crazy, right? And they make bad decisions, like, right? There are things to worry about in life. And I think that whenever we bring our comparison, jealousy, envy, whatever, like me, Jesus is going to say, hey, lay that aside. Whenever you bring your other stuff to me, like some of these other things that are very worrisome and anxiety driven and that we care about, I care for you. Care for you. But then this idea of pride and humility, it comes back to last week's lesson. If you missed it, go back and listen to it, because it's this idea of managing versus owning, right? And so much of the scriptures support this idea that you have been given a life by the God of this universe. You've been given it, and you've been given this life to steward, and you've been given this life to manage, right? Your job has been given to you because of your unique wiring and your gifting and your eyesight, your breath and your stuff, and you then can go to your job, which is a gift, and you can make money, which is a gift, and you can have some friends, which is a gift, and you can have a marriage, which is a gift, and you can have kids, which is a gift, and you can have all these different things in your life, which is a gift, and experiences. And when you learn, like the scriptures, it's about how are you managing what has been given to you. But so often we step across the line and we're like, no, that is my job, those are my kids, that is my marriage, that is my relationships, this is my money, this is my life that I am to live as the owner of. You're going with this? So when your life becomes anxiety ridden and any of these things go wrong, you're the owner. You've put yourself in the owner's seat. You have a financial problem, you have a marriage problem, you have a relationship problem, you have a parenting problem, you have a health problem. You are full of problems, and as long as you're full of problems, you're going to be anxiety filled and worried. But when you step across the line and you live in the managerial state that Scripture talks about, We cast our anxiety on God who cares for us, and we have a marriage problem, God. God, we got a financial problem around here. We got some issues, God, that we need to work through together. Does that make sense? It's a different, but as long as you live in ownership, like you got problems. But as long as you step over to like, this is a life that has been given to me to manage for the one and only God, then we got problems. And he can step in and help you sort those problems out. Right? I think that's what this is going back to in so many different ways. And it's this idea of this energetic word. Like I was thinking like, we got any fishermen in here, right? Like cast your anxiety. I grew up fishing and I had a bunch of different rods and reels and stuff like that. But one of the things about fishing is that unless you're using like a kid's pole, like the Zebco, with the little button, and you like have this and you're like, you got to cast with two hands. And it's this idea, I hear Ricky back here saying, I can cast with one hand. Well, you're weird, okay? And you live in Southern California and you get into the roaring 40s and cast with one hand. You know what I mean by that? Wind? Okay, sorry. It's this language of like energy that you're like, okay, because you recognize you're the manager, you are coming with two hands to cast this thing like, God, I can't take it. That's the idea of this passage. It's energetic, like cast it on him because he cares for you, right? And so it's this imagery that comes there. And then he gets to these final two verses, and this is where we're going to kind of end the letter and end our study in 1 Peter together. It's super helpful. I wish I had like 15 minutes to talk here, but we don't. Verse 8, be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Resist him, standing firm in the faith, because you know that the family of believers throughout the world is undergoing the same kind of sufferings. See, and Peter kind of wraps it all together here. I remember last week we talked about stewarding our life. We're managers of our life, so we steward our life, and we said even our suffering. And one of the things that was going on for them at the time that I talked about was he talked about this fiery trial. They were getting actually like tied to posts and set on fire alive, thrown to wild animals and different persecution. And one of the things that Peter's trying to say is that persecution, this idea of the things that are harming you, the things that are in your way, is actually the enemy working through these people to do that, right? But I think if he was to talk to 2025 Church 180 Southern California right here in so many ways, it's like, yeah, you're probably not going to get tied to a pole for now and burnt. You're probably not going to experience the enemy in some of these ways, but I don't know if you've read the Screw Tape Letters. I talk about books all the time, and C.S. Lewis' masterful work, and our Rooted group, we're going through a Rooted study right now, and we were talking about the enemy this past week, but part of the scriptures that we don't talk about a lot because we'd rather talk about God is love, and God cares for you, and God, whatever. And that's not good, but that's not bad, that's just incomplete. Because part of what the scriptures talk about is that you and I, we are in a battle. We are. And that we actually have an enemy that is seeking to rob the very life that you have. And he's not trying to do it through probably persecution for you. And he's not trying to do it through like, oh, so-and-so is going to have a big affair and or whatever. You know, one of the ways the enemy's really trying to attack you right now in Southern California, 2025? Make you an apathetic person. That's it. Because if he can just get you to care a little less and to take your eyes off of the important things in life and to put your eyes on whatever is in front of you, what more does he need? What more? We live such distracted, overwhelmed, anxious lives. And the scripture's just saying, man, just come to me. Cast your anxiety on me. I care for you. You've got an enemy. See, I was reading this week, and one of the commentators was talking about how, and I'll wrap up with this story. One of the commentators was talking about how for years, in tropical regions, malaria was devastating. And it still is in a lot of regions, but it was devastating. And nobody could figure out what the heck is going on with this malaria stuff. What's happening? And then through breakthroughs and in science and whatever, they started to figure out, you know what's doing it? A mosquito, right? They're like, now that we know what's doing it, we can fight it. And so they started draining all the stagnant water where mosquitoes would flourish. And they started building these things called nets, like screens where people could go to bed at night and, have a screen around them and not get bit by mosquitoes all night, potentially get malaria. Once they knew what it was, they could fight it. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that now you know. When you're going through persecution, when you're going through hard times, whenever you're getting distracted, whenever you're, take your eyes off of what matters in life and you're living for whatever else out there other than the values and the life and mission of Jesus, you have an enemy doing that. And the interesting thing about this passage is that what Peter doesn't say is stand up and fight. Or whenever he comes, run away really fast, right? Because you don't fight a mosquito or run away from a mosquito. You just are aware how mosquitoes work and you put up a net or some spray. And what Peter says in this passage is he says, stand and resist. Resist, because you have a God who cares for you and who has already defeated the evil one, and he wants to help you do the same thing. And so you stand lockstep in Jesus and you resist. If you're following along, you're panic about your note sheet, it says this: we overcome the enemy with resistance, not by fleeing or fighting, because we're going into communion right now. And I just want to say this, as we go into communion, yes, we had an ordering issue. We do not have the typical little thing. It actually tastes delicious. We got some sourdough bread back there and a cup of juice. And you can dip it like old school COVID. If that grosses you out, I think we may have a couple left. And you can grab one. But it's not as good. Communion reminds us that Jesus already fought. That's how he fought, right? And when we come to communion and we celebrate the body of Jesus was broken, the blood of Jesus was poured out, we do that. We're celebrating the victory that he's already won, because joke's on them. He rose 3 days later. We get to celebrate Easter next week because of it. And then we remember the hope that we have, the forgiveness that we have, and the life that we have because he laid down his life for us, and that was the battle that was won against the enemy. And so anytime there is this next song, I just want to encourage you, you can go back and grab some communion. If you've stepped across the line to follow Jesus and have your faith and trust in him and the battle that he's already won, please join us and take communion during this final song that we sing as we close out 1 Peter together and as we celebrate Easter together next week. Jesus, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you that you consider us worthy to care for us,